All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good buddy Rick Perlstein. Rick is, of course, a writer, a historian, the New York Times best-selling author of Before the Storm and Nixonland. He is currently a writer for The Nation magazine, which you can find at thenation.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Rick Perlstein. Rick, buddy, thank you for being on the show again.
Matt, always great to be on.
All right, so Rick, you last week were at the massive rally at Daley Plaza to protest Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel's closing of 54 Chicago public schools. What all the school closers, the neoliberals keep saying that it's all about statistics. We have to close these schools. These are underperforming schools. But you actually write that the statistics that Rahm and the Chicago public school system are using are actually not what they seem. Tell us about that.
Oh my God, the stuff with the statistics is so disgusting, Matt. Most of what kind of school advocates in Chicago do is what they call data liberation. And yeah, it's funny. It's like, Viva Data, right? Because what we call LaSalle Street here, where the Chicago School Board is so good at hiding data, obscuring data, locking up data in unmanipulatable PDF files, and lying, frankly. And one of the biggest, frankly, lies that they've used to kind of sell this idea is that the city has lost 145,000 students. And it's really fascinating because there's such it's classic propaganda. It's very slippery. Like sometimes they'll say the city has lost 145,000 school-age children, and then suddenly they'll say almost in the next sentence, and I linked to a video in which the vice president of the system does this. They'll say we lost 145,000 students. And the fact of the matter is that 145,000 statistic refers to all the people in the city that were lost from the age of 0 to 19. So it includes babies, it includes 19-year-olds, it includes people that go to parochial schools, it includes people that go to private schools, and these data liberators who are just incredible, indefatigable people go to the Apples to Apples website. I mean, isn't that clever? They compare apples to apples, but there's also kind of apples for the teachers. I mean, there really is an amazing cadre of school defending activists here. Anyway, Apples to Apples calculated that the number of Chicago public school students that they've lost is actually 30,000. So we're talking about
not 145,000, 30,000.
30,000. And so, this is just a lie that they repeat over and over and over and over. So what are you going to do when you're fighting against a cadre of people that are backing their kind of reform, quote unquote, using mendacity? It's brazen. It's astonishing.
Again, like how do you when you have a side that's not even using fact, and I think that actually using actual statistics, actual fact, and like you even just mentioned, there are tons of people in Chicago that are fighting this. The Chicago Teachers Union, all types of activists who are fighting against this. But it's one of those things where it's really hard to fight against an opponent that is lying constantly, essentially, and won't even accept basic reality.
Although they're fighting pretty darn effectively. And, the fact of the matter is, you mentioned that rally. WBEZ, which is the public station here, which has done outstanding reporting, estimated there were 1,000 people there. The Sun-Times said 3,000. Who knows how many people were there? It was a lot of people for 40-degree Chicago weather. The amazing thing about it is, let's presume that there were 1,000 people there. 100 people submitted themselves to civil disobedience arrests in front of the Chicago Public Schools. Karen Lewis, who's the president of the union, who is one of the most balls-out, toughest union leaders in America, and also one of the most democratic, a true hero of democracy, basically has implied that the teachers are willing to shut the city down if this goes through because it's going to be so disastrous. So we can talk about all the other reasons why it's going to be disastrous. But basically at this rally, she stood up at the dais and said in the microphone, when the first day of school comes, go to the school that you were going to before, not these so-called receiving schools. So, they're talking about throwing their body on the wheels of the machine and grinding the thing to a halt, which is astonishing.
It's astonishing and inspiring, and really, the first time in the last couple of decades where you have a city that is run by Democrats, and you actually have union members willing to actually stand up to Democrats, which I think is frankly, it's the most inspiring thing of this whole entire fight.
Absolutely. There's very little kind of clever political calculation on the part of the Chicago Teachers Union. They're fighting for the teachers. They're fighting for the students. They're fighting for the parents. And one of the things that was so exciting about their strike last year, which kind of immediately preceded the announcements that they were going to be closing schools, was that they really won the loyalty of the city's parents as the credible school reformers. And with this move, they're just kind of strengthening that credibility. I mean, I haven't seen polling, but I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the city agrees with the position of the teachers that they're the ones who are defending the integrity of the school system. And, we could get into all kinds of stuff. I mean, this is hard on the heels of an absolutely astonishing Chicago-style scandal in which the United Neighborhood Organization, which started as a community organizing group, but is now basically a not-for-profit charter school operator run by a guy named Juan Rangel. But I found an amazing article in which he said, what did he say? Rangel also works to combat the misconceptions surrounding profits. The CEO says many young people believe nonprofits are well-intentioned but offer little room for advancement and require taking a vow of poverty. Well, his officers have not taken a vow of poverty. One of his top executives got a $10 million construction contract. Another got a $2 million contract, a $1.5 million contract to do the windows in these schools. I mean, this is real old school Chicago stuff. And Juan Rangel was one of the chairmen of Rahm Emanuel's election campaign. And,
I'm shocked.
It's really astonishing. And this executive who had a $10 million contract had to resign. This stuff is all crumbling. And as this is happening, I mean, really, what's fascinating about it is how bad Rahm Emanuel, is supposedly the master, is at playing this game. I mean, his press operation is so closed up. His procedures are so undemocratic. And he's just kind of used to being able to kind of get his way in Washington and within the Democratic Party. It just all looks terrible. It just smells to high heaven. And one of the things also that's going on in this city that everyone knows around the country is an astonishing epidemic of youth violence. I mean, we've had more shootings than any year for a long, long time. And these school closings are going to exacerbate this. Everyone knows it. I mean, just to take an example, one of the schools in what was formerly the housing project Cabrini Green is right across the street from a massive apartment complex. So kids literally got to walk across the street. The school is called Manier. And that school is closing, and the kids are going to have to walk 7 blocks down to a school called Jenner. Now, Manier and Jenner have been basically the turf, the kind of headquarters of 2 rival gangs going back decades. And so suddenly these kids are going to be, from Manier, are going to be thrown into this school in which they're going to be persona non grata. And everyone knows, because it's happened before when when schools have closed and they've kind of moved these district boundaries, that there's going to be violent turf battles. And they didn't even appear to think about this when they were planning it. They didn't, just so par for the course with the Emanuel administration, they didn't have any buy-in from the communities. It took a petition signed by a vast majority of the aldermen just to have hearings on these school closings. I mean, they really were going to do this top-down without any input entirely. And they ended up doing it, announcing it all of a sudden without even telling the aldermen whose wards were affected. They pretty much did it almost without community input. And by the way, when the announcement was made by the new school CEO, Barbara Bird Bennett, who replaced the fired CEO who wouldn't play ball, apparently, when this announcement was made, Rahm Emanuel, like I said, he doesn't know how to play this game, was away on a ski vacation with his family.
when I saw that, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, and when he finally showed up for a press conference, which was, by the way, to announce the opening of a new Walmart, he had a sunburn from his ski trip.